Hello, and welcome back to the Haligtree, right at the start, pretty much. Today I'm going to be going back through this section for not all the stuff I missed, but a lot of the stuff I missed, hopefully. Or until I get sick of it, because this area is really annoying, because of all the bubbles and the ants. But I will do that before moving further through the actual fun part of the Haligtree. I'm gonna get one shot. That's a bad play. I should be looking behind me. I actually heard those. I should have dodged, but yeah, I'll be doing this. As I explore, I'm gonna drop down here when I have a good chance. I just need to figure out where I drop. Wait till those disappear. Then check. Drop from here. I might get shot. I'm not going to worry about the FP restorer, so I'm just going to run past. I just need to kill the guy shooting bubbles at me. Yeah. I think today, just because it was on my mind last time and it's still sort of neat, I'm going to talk about a TV show that was fun. I'm a little iffy on that. That was bad play, but I'm a little iffy on that. It's probably the correct hit, but it's probably because it's really wide. But a TV show is what I want to talk about for a bit, because it was interesting. Probably not the greatest TV show in the world, but it was called Primeval. It had an attempted revival, sort of Primeval New World set in Vancouver that got one season and then was canceled because, I mean, I don't think it was terrible. It was fun. I enjoyed it when it released, but it does make sense that it didn't do well, given that the original series had already been canceled. I don't know if it was BBC. It was British for sure. I don't know who produced it, who paid for it, none of that, but it was a TV show that the reason I really enjoyed it is it was like a dinosaur focused show, but it was more of like sci-fi than normal dinosaur, because it was about portals that linked, that brought people and fun game. Portals that were called anomalies in the show, that were links between time. I think time and space, given that spatially, it's like when the Stegosaurus was around, the Earth was on the direct opposite side of the galaxy. So like it can't be spatial in the same spatial location, though. I mean, if the reference point is Earth, it could be the same spatial location, but I don't think they worried about like the relative position, given that the entire series was pretty much set in the UK. So they would have had to, I think, definitely limit their options when it comes to dinosaurs. Like, there were dinosaurs in the area, but there weren't as many in just the UK as there were around the entire world. So I'm gonna wait until they de-aggro and then go back and kill them. But yeah, like, it was all about that, and it was really interesting. Like, eventually it sort of lost the dinosaur only premise, and it had future, which fit, because if there are rifts in time that go to the past, what is now but the past of the future? Pretty fun. But I mean, the future stuff was much more. It was less grounded because it's not based on real anything. Like, there were cool things about it. Like, the most, I don't know, the primary future creature antagonist was like, oh, it's like a bat and a bunch of other stuff. It's like echolocation. All those were kind of neat, but it ran for 4 or 5 seasons, I think. Well, in Britain, so it'd be series. So it ran for 4 or 5 series, I think. I'm gonna check real quick. But there was a weird, maybe, I don't think you'd call it soap opera adjacent. So it ran for 4 years. So I'm thinking it probably only got 4 seasons / in British series. Oh, it got 5, but it got 5 seasons, 5 series in 4 years. Oh, no, never mind. I'm dumb. 2007, 2008, 2009, 2011. It didn't stop before 2011. It stopped after a series in 2011, probably. Yeah, it was a fun show. They showed a lot of fun dinosaurs. They also showed a lot of gross stuff, like parasites and dodos. Parasite in dodos that killed somebody pretty early on. I've still never watched that episode because parasites are disgusting. Yeah, it was fun. It followed... It did some stuff with the time travel, like... I mean, I can't imagine many people are like, oh, let's watch this show. But I wouldn't... I feel like even then, I probably shouldn't spoil big, elements. But they did do a few things where actions in the distant past had an impact on the present. What they were, not gonna mention, but... Like, I mean, every time travel... It's not a time travel show, really, because it was more... Well, I guess it would be a time travel show. But the things that do most of the time traveling are animals and such, but... Okay. I'm not going all the way... I'm not. It's not worth it. It's not worth going all the way around there for those items. Yeah, I'm gonna say I'm happy. I don't want to fight these ants again. I don't want to fight the bubble monsters more. I might go for here, though. This might be okay. The story followed a lot of stuff. It made a reference at one point to what is thought to be the original, like, I don't know, human colony? I think because around the time that the series was being released, that was found in Africa, like the cradle of humanity. But it had a character who traveled through the anomalies throughout the past, and there was a certain degree of, I don't know, soap opera-esque aesthetics. That was pretty good. That was totally worth going back for. And now I leave. Because I got the best item. But, like, there's a whole eventual plot thread about how there was an affair. Like, this is a dinosaur show, in my opinion. A sci-fi dinosaur show. We don't need an affair to occur. But it did a lot of sci-fi. It did time travel. It did weird creatures. It it did clones at one point. The clone stuff was kind of not that. It wasn't central. It was just, yep, there are clones. Which, like, honestly, if your show isn't focused on clones, I think just saying, yep, there's clones, and then not going into too much more detail than that is probably for the best. Oops. Yeah, it was fun. The New World version had, like, one character return, sort of, but it had there were raptors that got into a marijuana grow-op, and so they just burned all the marijuana until the raptors passed out. I think that kind of, to a certain extent, does indicate why it might have been canceled, because it was a bit too campy. Campy might not be the right word, but it was a bit too... It didn't take itself seriously, which might have led to people not enjoying it as much, because the previous series had with like a cliffhanger series in the non-British sense. It's like series as in the original Primeval, as opposed to... Oh, I just said series and my phone thought I said Siri, because I'm bad at speech. Like the original series in that Primeval, not Primeval New World, Primeval New World had one season and then it died, I think. Yeah, the original series ended with like, oh, something you've done now has ruined the future, come back, like very serious, and then it never had another series, so it never got wrapped up. But that's very different in tone from... Oh, rude. It's a very different tone from hotboxing some raptors in Vancouver. Oh, I'm out of FP, okay. Oh. That's more damage than I was expecting. That was janky. I mean, whatever happened there was pretty janky, because he jumped back, I guess, as part of his attack and fell to his death. Mostly him falling to his death is the janky part, not me dying. But his falling to his death was very weird. Whoop, I missed. I almost fell off a cliff. Rude. 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 I was gonna... I'm just here to heal. Wrong one. I didn't die. Okay. Oh. His arms were too tall, so we missed. Very lucky. I really do like that Ash War. Like, it's very good. Ghost Flame Ignition is a excellent attack. Oh, you didn't fall off the cliff. Wow. Rude. You should have fallen. I still don't have that armor set. Please don't kill me. Okay, he almost pushed me off the cliff, but he didn't. I still don't have the armor set that turns you into one of these guys. Visually. I knew there would be something back here. That first attack was pretty bad. Yeah. Like, the Primeval as a show initially followed... Oops. He really responded quickly there. It initially followed one character. Well, there were two, like, main characters. We're like, oh, these are the main people. One of them being the most main. Like, there was a main character, and then a I don't know, primary secondary character. Because I don't think they were deuteragonists. They weren't both the main character. But he was more important than the other side characters. But the other side characters eventually became the main characters after a lot of events. Yeah. I should just let the rot tick. I hate these enemies. They just waste time. And I'm gonna get rotted again, and I'm gonna just let it go. Cause I actually might regen enough that it's not that bad. Do I even have... I think if I have this equipped, I regen enough that it is actually not that bad. And these are still really annoying to fight. But... So yeah, back to Primeval. It was sort of, I don't know, Monster of the Week-esque. As with most of those sorts of Monster of the Week type shows. Like Scooby-Doo, Buffy. Yeah, I figured that was happening. It didn't lean very far back before attacking, but it was leaning. But, like, as with most of those, there is an ongoing plot line. Though I think, having not watched Buffy, and Scooby-Doo's a cartoon for kids, traditionally, I think Primeval did have a lot more, like, story moving forward moments and stuff. Like, they... Oh, I don't want to go there. Like, they actually learn a lot. Let me drop! Okay, wrong button, I guess. Like, they learn a lot as the story went on, and, like, stuff meaningfully changed to, like, a major degree that wasn't just... It wasn't... I think compared to other potential Monster of the Week type shows, it was a bit more sustained story. I guess Monster of the Week is not... I mean, it is correct in this context. Did that kill me? It did. Okay, I'm not fighting these anymore. It's a waste of time. But, like, Monster of the Week is not the right thing. Because, like, Bones, CSI, those types of shows that are mostly worried about the individual episode and less sustained stories, I think, are in the same sort of... Oh, okay. I'm gonna die. I didn't die. They're in the same sort of wheelhouse. Like, they exist in the same sort of style. Why did it take so long for the second one to start shooting lasers? I thought they had already both started shooting lasers at me. Oh, I'm approaching the snails, aren't I? I'm not quite at them, but they're not far. Let go. That was garbage. He jumped through that door somehow. That was garbage. And they can see me. Good to know. Bye. That was complete garbage that he's able to jump through that and attack the way he did. That was such trash. Is that yet another of the ones that I don't need? I have 2 of these, none of these. What a shame. Where'd that boss guy go? He's not a boss version, but... Where'd he go? He fell here, right? How did... I guess I shouldn't be asking how they can see me when they don't have eyes, so... I should just move along. Just ignore it. Rude. I'm certain I was gonna fall off that cliff there. I was certain I was gonna fall. Okay, safe. I'm still thinking about Primeval, but I don't have anything actually... Like, I could talk about episode, but that's all, like, spoilery. I could be like, oh, this is specific to a late episode. There's an episode where future fungus comes through an anomaly and it turns people into mushroom people. They don't look like mushrooms, they just are like hulking masses of fungus. It's pretty creepy. There's an episode where the enemy is a Precambrian worm that can only survive in the fog that comes from the anomaly because the air now and the air in like the Precambrian Earth's history is different. That's pretty fun. Now, whether worms like that existed in the way they were portrayed is probably doubtful, but it's a TV show for entertainment. And they eventually started creating future creatures that just sort of existed as whatever they wanted them to be, so like, it's not that important. I think they did a few things, like, kind of informative. Like, there are a few things like, oh yeah, I learned something here. Like, technically, that Precambrian thing, you learned something because the atmosphere was different, so they can't survive in modern atmosphere. Whether that actually would apply to the theoretical animals is not the important part. The important part is, like, Meganeura, which was a giant dragonfly, basically, could only exist as a, like, eagle-sized dragonfly because there was a ton of oxygen in the Earth's air at the time. Which isn't really taught via this entertainment TV show. But if you're like, oh, I'm curious whether any of this is true, you could potentially get to the question of, like, how the atmosphere has changed. So it could, snails. It could potentially raise questions that if you researched it, could teach you something. Now, the show itself doesn't teach much, but it exists. Oh, is there a third snail? Oh, there is. I only ever fought the 2, because there's no reason to hang out here after you get past those first 2 guys. Like, I've never killed this 3rd snail, because you don't need to. You kill these 2, and then you just leave, because there's nothing to explore here. Then that 3rd guy takes a while to arrive, and you don't even have to kill them. You can just go here and then jump over to whichever roof you want. I almost died. If I'd been bounced out by the roof, that would have been bad. Yeah, I'm safe. But it's, as a TV show, it had, I think, future seals at one point? it was pretty weird that way. It did kill a lot of characters, which was honestly kind of interesting. Like, I think of the original sort of group of, this is a spoiler, so don't listen if you ever like, hey, I want to watch this weird show. But like 10 seconds from now, I will not be talking about it. Starting now. But a lot of the original group dies. And I'm not going to talk more, but it's kind of, it leads to a change in dynamic within the story that feels very natural because of how various people, the roles people have in the story changes as it goes. And it makes for some actual, like, interesting moments. Now, it's not like, oh no, I know that, like, you can't be like, oh, this is gonna happen here because of anything. Like, that was a bad roll, I should have been hit there. There's a lot that happens in the story that's like, okay, yeah, I mean, that was kind of expected. Oh, that was obviously not going to go poorly because that's how this type of story generally goes. They can't go too poorly because the heroes always need to win in the end. But there's a lot of interesting stuff. There's the classic evil government moments. Well, evil military agency that is part of the government. That's a common-ish element of the story that I think gets sort of abandoned and eventually gets replaced by evil corporate greed. And like, oh, we needed funding, so we got funding from a private organization, but we have to work along with a private organization who's only looking out for themselves. And like the nature of, like, I don't know, niche research, I guess, where sometimes you have to accept that the only way you're going to get funding is if you sacrifice your morals, you can get funding, but if you don't, it can be a struggle. A lot of stuff. The story does end weird. It has a very bad ending because they weren't expecting to end when they did. Like, in terms of canceled TV shows, Firefly, which only had one season, didn't have like, they got Serenity as a movie afterwards that sort of was meant as a wrap-up. I don't know. But the series itself didn't go out on a cliffhanger. They weren't attempting to set up a cliffhanger for another season. So it doesn't feel awful how it ended. Obviously, more story would be fun, but it's still, because they didn't try to leave a cliffhanger for like season 2. Maybe they knew they were canceled before the end of the season before everything was made. I don't know. But it certainly it's certainly like, some endings to canceled series are better than others. And I think Firefly's end, I mean, they didn't really have an ending because it was a very episodic series. Like, there was a lot of mysteries that were not revealed. Like, specifics surrounding the 2x2 Hands of Blue that one might have been answered in the movie. Like, that's normal setting up for the future and not cliffhanger. There's like a a lot of the stuff about River wasn't fully... I'm gonna switch weapons, I'm getting sidetracked, but a lot of stuff surrounding River in Firefly wasn't fully explained in the original series. But even the stuff that sort of got left out to dry didn't feel awful. Like, sure, it wasn't ideal that stuff was left unanswered, but it didn't feel, oh, here's a cliffhanger that you know nothing about just to try to interest you in the next season that doesn't exist because it got cancelled. Which, I mean, it would be pretty bold of the writers of Firefly to have, considering the whole situation with how episodes were released out of order or really awkwardly, it would have been bold to try to cliffhanger. Okay, it sometimes charges up an extra stage, so you have to actually react, and I reacted poorly. I missed, I'm too far away. Oh, is it when he... No. Maybe when he jumps he doesn't do the full charge. But yeah, like, there's no way Firefly would try to go for this, would have gone for that, because I think even as it... I'm assuming even as it was being made, it was probably a suboptimal, like, setup. They probably weren't hopeful, whereas a series on its 5th season trying to be like, oh, here's a cliffhanger for season 6 does make sense. But it is what it is. It also, the final series, like, it referenced a science thing that I think was at the time fresh. Whether, I'm pretty sure it's still accurate, like, I don't know if it was a reveal later in the series, but it's like it was referencing how it was found out that the poles of the Earth do switch, like, occasionally. Like, I don't know how frequently it is, I don't know the science, but it was found out around then that the poles of the Earth have switched in the past. Okay, this is bad. And it might not be the best choice, considering people will draw conclusions on anything. Ugh, that was just bad. Like, the poles of the Earth switching became a central thing to, like, oh, the world's gonna end. And in, you know, reality, people sort of believe that type of thing. So it might not be the optimal choice of apocalypse supposition. Like, oh yeah, the world's gonna end because the poles are switching. Now, it's possible that that technology, all electronics will die when the poles switch because the electromagnetic field won't be appropriately shielding the Earth from the sun, and it'll be bad. But it's also maybe not. Maybe it'll be fine. And maybe it won't happen for millennia. Maybe humanity will wipe itself out before that happens. Who knows? But using it as basically using recent science is always not in poor taste, but risky, because it can then feel very dated once the science is disproven, once the conclusions are made that no, this won't be the apocalypse. It might be bad, but it's not going to be like the end of the world. Now, obviously, the end of the world that this story supposed was relating to the anomalies, so it wasn't like, oh, the real world could end this way. It was very obviously not suggesting that the world would end in this manner, but it's still one of those things where once it's not like fresh in the, oh, here's something to think about now, once it's no longer fresh in that context, people aren't really gonna, oh, this is a fun topic. It's just gonna be like, oh, that's that silly thing that people thought was gonna end the world. Not on the level of like believing that the Mayan apocalypse was gonna arrive because the calendar happened to end around then. But it's still like, bad science that's been disproven can always be funny in the future, in like hindsight. And it was actually a very good choice of, I don't know, apocalypse causers, because in the world in question, the anomalies interacted with magnetic waves. Like, they used radios eventually to locate them, which was fun. When it was like, there were a lot of really good moments. And when they learned that certain radio frequencies were... Oh, I thought he was dead. Whoops. I was scratching my cheek. I'm lucky I didn't die there. But when they learned that certain radio frequencies were, like, jammed or affected by the anomalies, it was a great, like, it was a really good moment in the story. Because up until then, they always had to react. Everything they could do, they were only able to react to something happening. But then after that, they were able to be, eventually, they were able to be proactive. They were able to predict what was going to happen, which is technically a spoiler, but it's the type of thing that's like, okay, obviously, once they start trying to figure this out, they will figure it out eventually in this type of story. But it was really fun the way it was revealed. I'm never going to shoot it. Like, the reveal was great. The way it was... Oh, this area. Ugh. It was just such a fun process. Like, they were worried about, you know... I can see why they jumped. They were worried... They were focusing on raptors in a bowling alley? I think? I'm not sure, though. I think I want to go there eventually, but I think that's where I need to go progress-wise, and this is just an item. If they needed to go... But yeah, the raptors in a bowling alley. It might have been the episode, but that's a spoiler. Like, come on. Please? You're gonna do this to me? 3 of these, 0 of these. Which doesn't make sense. Well, I mean, it does, but mostly, like, you only need 1 ancient smithing stone for those anyway. It's not like you need 3 of them. So getting more of those is kind of rough. It's pointless. It's useless. But I guess I should probably upgrade that hammer, huh? Yeah, it was a fun series because it had serious moments, and then there's definitely an enemy. Yeah, right there. I can see it on the left. Like, it had serious moments. It had jokey moments. It had jokey moments that turned kind of serious. Like, it had a lot going for it that made it really fun to watch. Though, admittedly, I think even the last season was kind of... It became too much Like, not, this is not in the, oh, it became all about politics sort of sense. Like, it wasn't about real world politics or anything of that. It was the in-world politics became too central, in my opinion, and not like governmental politics, but the research lab and their interactions with the rich, I don't know, billionaire. I don't know if they were a billionaire. I can't really remember. Like, that became much more central than the dinosaurs. And that felt like the dinosaurs are what's fun. Even the fake monsters they created were mostly pretty fun. Like, there were beetles that could chew through anything, which was kind of lame because there were like 4 million of them and they just dug through stuff. It was kind of lame, but the future creatures that became a recurring threat was a lot of fun. I'm going to talk to her and then continue talking and then wrap up right here.
Again we meet. I can only surmise our purposes are aligned. In which case, allow me to explain myself. I am of Melania's blood, but in what capacity I know not. I could be sister, daughter, or an offshoot. Whatever the case, though, I am certain of a kinship between us. There is something I must return to Melania. The will that was once her own. The dignity. The sense of self. That allowed her to resist the call of the Scarlet Rot. The pride she abandoned. To meet Radahn's measure. There is something I'm the will. The dignity. The sense.
Yes, it's sort of... They fought each other? Or not fight each other, but she's like representative of all that. Yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up here. I just want to finish talking about Primeval for a second. I'm looking at the UK ITV viewers per episode in millions. Like this fourth series had like a low point of 3.29 million viewers, whereas the fifth series went down to 1.38 for the final episode, whereas most of the season 3 had a low point of 3.28. Season 1 and 2, season 1 5.81 was the low point. Season 2 6.05 million in episode 2 was the low point. And the high point of season 5, 2.55 million. And that was the first episode when it started, and then people were like, oh, no, this is bad. Like, the averages, 6.39 million, 6.29, 4.99, 4.03, 1.82. It 100% makes sense that it was canceled. But it was a fun show. The dinosaurs were fun. The creatures that were made up were mostly fun. It had a few maybe weird moments, but it was also interesting. Like, they took advantage of the time travel stuff while not dwelling on it, which I kind of like. Like, time travel doesn't exist. It probably will never exist. Going back in time, going forward in time, obviously you can do that because of like relativity and all that, but they would regularly have the future change as they did stuff in the present, because stuff from the future impacted the present, which therefore impacts the future. That was pretty fun, honestly. It felt kind of retcon-y. It felt like they were just doing it because it was convenient for the plot. But it was fun. The future creature showed up a lot. It was a fun creature that they made up. There was one really good moment in, I think, the first season. Might have been the second. Excellent moment. Taking advantage of the fact that they worked based off of echolocation. It was cool. And it was a wonderful show. Last season was worse than the rest. But it was fun nonetheless. There were weird gargoyle creatures in one episode that were very weird. I sat down here to allocate flasks. Allocate? Yeah, that's good. Back to this and this. So, next time I'll continue. Oh, I hate that guy. I hate that guy. I hate that guy. He's probably one of the most annoying. He's not like worse, meaningfully, significantly worse than other ones of his style of enemy, but I just don't. That he's just in an awkward location. Rude. Actually, how does this? Okay, this one still does hit harder, just as a normal swinging weapon. I'm gonna stick with this one just for now, but I'm gonna probably jump attack that guy a bunch, which is why I switched. Yeah, I will wrap up here. Okay, thank you. Yeah, wrap up here. Continue next time. Hopefully I can get to Millennia within the next 2 episodes. And then I will be spending however many hours it takes to beat her, as is necessary. Actually, it might take longer than that, because this area is a lot longer than it feels like it is, I think. Yeah. I'll explore this next time. So, and I won't be talking about Primeval anymore, because I have nothing to say about that show. Maybe I'll think of other TV shows that were fun. But I don't know. It's all dependent on if I can think of anything that might be interesting. Yeah, I'll wrap up here. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.